Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome in to the pregame call on PowerMizzou.com, presented to you by Call and Gentry Law Group. It is Saturday morning, and let's get fired up for Mizzou versus Southeast Missouri State. Look, I'm going to be real honest up front with this one. It is probably the least anticipated game of the year. I'm not sure I can even say probably. It's a morning kickoff against an FCS team. This one is going to start in 59 minutes at 11 a.m. And if it's not over by, let's say, 12:30, I think those of you that are watching are going to be a little disappointed. It might make for a very lively post-game show later this afternoon. But there's not much suspense in this one. We'll get into it a little bit. I'm not going to break down a ton of matchups and, talk about SEMO's players and this and that. We're going to check in with Mitchell Forty from the stadium in a little bit. We're going to look at a few of the numbers. We're going to go through some of the history. We'll look at other games around the country, and we want to certainly invite you guys to comment and ask questions and whatever you guys want to talk about, because, again, this is not a game where we have a ton to break down. We didn't do an opponent preview show this week, so I don't have the interview with an opposing media member. There's not a lot of suspense, so we're going to ask you guys to drive this. May even open up the phone line later in the show if there's anything you guys want to talk about. We will certainly get to all that. Before we do, I want to make sure that you guys know about Call and Gentry Law Group in Jefferson City. They are our presenting sponsor for this show every single week. You can find them on the internet at callgentry.com. You can find them physically in Jefferson City, Missouri. And you can also give them a call at 573-691-4531. They can handle pretty much any of your legal needs you have. Personal injury, family law, whatever it may be. They've done some contract stuff for me. Chip and Jason, Emily and Nick, basically able to handle anything you need. If you go to that website, callgentry.com, you can schedule a consultation with them. They even, during the week, have live chats online where you can get in touch with somebody. So if you've got any legal needs, make sure to get in touch with the group down at Call and Gentry Law Group in Jefferson City. Certainly appreciate their partnership throughout the season and letting us get you guys set for kickoff every week. Again, Mizzou and SEMO a little less than an hour away, I should say. I'm going to get this out of the way early. The game is on SEC Network Plus. You can find that online. If you have the ESPN app on your television, you can find it there. It is not on it may be, I don't have cable anymore. So if you have Dish or DirecTV or a cable system, I honestly don't know if that is listed as a channel on your guide. It probably is as like an SEC alternate, but I'm not sure. I always access it through the ESPN app. That's how I'm going to watch on my TV later today. So you guys can do that. Hopefully you can find it. And let's start off with just straight truth here from Adam. Let's start a petition to ban FCS games. Adam, I could not agree with you anymore. I despise this week. I don't enjoy anything about it. I don't like these games. They're pointless. And let me explain to you exactly how pointless. Missouri, since 2000, I forget the exact number. They're like 14-0 or 15-0, something like that against FCS opponents. The average score is like 50-9. If you take away the one unbelievable year in which Missouri gave up 43 points to Missouri State, they're averaging giving up 7.3 points per game in FCS games. Not one of these games has ever been close. 72-43 against Missouri State was, I think, as close as it got. Missouri played SEMO one year and won 34-3. I mean, that game wasn't close, but 31, that's about as close as it gets. I predicted the line at 33 earlier this week. I believe I saw somebody said it's at 35. There's just, Eli Drinkwitz said earlier this week that 7 FCS teams have beaten FBS teams this year. And he has that list of those teams printed out and posted in every Missouri player's locker. And that's the issue. It happens just often enough that there's an argument to keep it going, right? You can get Montana over Washington 13-7 in the opening week of the season. It is not impossible. North Dakota State actually has beaten quite a few FBS teams over the years. Appalachian State, before they made the move to FBS, won a couple of these games. SEMO is not winning this game today. Here is SEMO's history against Division I against FBS competition. SEMO is 1-22. Here are those games. Lost to Marshall 63-7. Lost to Eastern Michigan 16-2, then 35-32. Beat Middle Tennessee 24-14 on September 28, 2002. Since then, they've lost all these games. 17-3 to Ohio, 21-3 to Arkansas State, 49-10 to Bowling Green, 44-27 to Central Michigan, 33-12 to Kent State, 63-7 to Arkansas, 59-3 to Cincinnati, 52-3 to Missouri, 70-3 to Cincinnati, 27-10 to Ball State, 59-0 to Purdue, 38-27 to Central Michigan, 31-13 to Ole Miss, 34-28 to Kansas in 2014, 34-3 to Missouri, 35-17 to Memphis, 38-16 to Kansas in 2017, 48-21 to Arkansas State, and 18-50 to Missouri in 2019. They're not good games. They're not close. SEMO is not winning this game. I mean, that's the only thing I know about this season is that SEMO is not winning this game. So that's out of the way early. So what are we paying attention to? Well, let's talk about some things that I think you want to see. I think you want to see Tyler Beatty have like fewer than 10 carries. Tyler Beatty has played 86% of Missouri's snaps this year. I understand why it's been that way. He's their best offensive weapon. They needed him to win week 1, and he gave them the best chance to win week 2. No issue with the workload that Tyler Beatty has had. But it can't continue. He can't be getting 30 touches a game and playing 87% of the snaps all year. And it's not because he's not big enough. It's because nobody can take that kind of a pounding 12 consecutive weeks once you get into the SEC schedule. So you've got to find a way to lighten Tyler Beatty's workload. Today is that day. Elijah Young needs 10 carries in this game. Whoever they identify as the number 3 back, whether that's Michael Cox, whether it's Dawson Downing, maybe you even throw the freshman B.J. Harris in there for a few carries. You want other guys to carry the ball besides Tyler Beatty. You do not want Tyler Beatty to be the leading receiver. You want some of these guys on the outside to step forward, whether that is Towski Dove and Kiki Chisholm, whether it's Mookie Cooper and Dominic Lovett, whether it's, some of these other younger guys. I'd like to see 3 Missouri quarterbacks play today. First of all, I'm interested to see if they get in a position to remove Connor Bazelak from the game, which they most certainly should. Let's be clear about this. We shouldn't learn very much about Missouri in this game. If we learn anything about Missouri, it's not going to be positive in this game. If they go out and win 52-3, it doesn't mean the deep passing game is fixed. It doesn't mean the defense is fixed. But SEMO, I'll show you the stats in a minute. SEMO isn't very good. Even for an FCS team, SEMO isn't very good. So we learn nothing that's going to tell us, hey, this gives Missouri a better chance next week against Boston College. There's nothing I can see that tells me that. But I'd like to see if they do get in the situation to sit Connor Bazelak, who plays? Who's the number 2 quarterback? I believe it would be Brady Cook, but there's an or on the depth chart, as there is at almost every position for Missouri. So would Tyler Macon get some snaps? Is there a chance we see all 3 of them? So you want to see that, all those things offensively. Defensively, what you want to see is domination, to be quite honest. And I'm going to show you these stats. SEMO, now look, they have played 2 good FCS teams. They played, in week 1, they played number 7 Southern Illinois, and they lost that game 47-21. In week 2, they played number 1 and defending national FCS champion Sam Houston and lost that 52-14. These numbers are not impressive. 274.5 yards a game. SEMO has less in total offense than Connor Bazelak is averaging passing. And remember, Missouri has played Kentucky and Central Michigan. SEMO has played Southern Illinois and Sam Houston. So 274 a game, not impressive. If you're averaging under 400 yards in total offense in college football, you're not all that good on offense these days. They're running for 122.5 yards a game. That's not it's not an awful number, but it's not super impressive. Now, obviously, Missouri has problems with the run defense, and I'm sure we will discuss that as we get into this show. Missouri's run defense is not very good right now. But if they come out and hold SEMO to 18 rushing yards, I don't care. That doesn't fix it. That doesn't mean Missouri's run defense is good. SEMO runs the ball okay for an FCS team. Missouri should be better at every position. Their defensive linemen should be able to defeat SEMO's offensive linemen one-on-one. Blaze Aldridge and Devin Nicholson should be able to make plays in the run game. If that's not happening, if we see SEMO run for 200 yards, yes, major red flag. Even more of a red flag than the things we've seen in the first 2 weeks from Missouri's run defense, which is a big red flag. Passing yards, SEMO can't throw the ball either. They run it a little better than they throw it. They throw it quite poorly. 152 a game that's like a 1968 number as far as passing yards. Turnovers favors Missouri too. That's been a big number for Missouri. They're +3 in 2 games. They've given up 1. They've caused 4. And without that number, I actually believe Missouri would be sitting here 0-2 off a blowout loss at Kentucky. The turnovers, 2-0 against Central Michigan, 2-1 in Missouri's favor against Kentucky. And those are the plays that gave Missouri the win against Central Michigan and made things closer against Kentucky, because that was not, to me, a 7-point game. So I know we have a decent number of you guys on hand watching and some comments here, and we're going to get to them. And Breakfast King is here with us, as he always is. I know he's not a fan of the 11 a.m. starts, so appreciate you being on here, asking about the tea. Yeah, that is Breakfast King. That is a long-sleeve Power Mizzou tea, and you can get that at 573tees.com/collections/Power Mizzou. They have all kinds of stuff, all kinds of Power Mizzou stuff. I've actually got a box of shirts sitting over here next to me, and you can order them off 573tees.com, which is another sponsor of ours, so would encourage you to do that. Adam hoping the post-game shows as entertaining as last week. Last week was a thing, man. Now, that was a show. Now, I may have actually figured out a way to put callers on hold on Skype this week. I'm not positive that I know what I'm doing, but I'm going to give it a shot, which may prevent like 6 people talking at once. I don't honestly anticipate that we're going to have quite the volume of calls as we did last week against Kentucky. Again, if we do, I don't think that's a great sign, because I think that means the game would be significantly closer than fans would want it to be. Ron Davis says, I want to see a lot of the freshmen on the field in this game. Those freshmen linebackers need to play and show what they can do, even if it's against SEMO. Yeah, so they've really played 2 linebackers for the vast majority of the season. That's Aldridge and Nicholson. They played Chad Bailey 17 snaps against Kentucky, so that was a little bit more. Bailey wasn't a huge upgrade over Devin Nicholson, to be quite honest. Not sure he was an upgrade at all. He struggled at times in that game. But those 3 guys are going to play. But beyond that, do we see Will Norris? Do we see Jamie Petway? Do we see the freshmen Zach Lovett and Damian Wilson? You know, I kind of tend to agree with Ron. Now, I'm not saying you skip over Bailey and Petway and Norris. I mean, go ahead, get those guys out there. But I'd like to see those 2 freshmen out on the field and see what they can do. And like you said, even if it's SEMO, if they look really good, then maybe all of a sudden you go, you know what? Maybe we have a guy that can help out here. I mean, if Damian Wilson comes out and he's flying around and sideline to sideline and all that, then who knows? Maybe you do throw him in the lineup at some point coming up, because what Missouri has had at linebacker so far hasn't gotten it done. We talked a lot about this week on the shows that Mitchell Forty and I do, and Eli Drinkwitz was asked about I asked him whether it was a bigger issue at defensive line or linebacker. He said it's a problem everywhere. Like, we're just not getting it done at any level. And then somebody asked him a question about Blaze Aldridge, and the question was phrased as, how impressed have you been with how Blaze Aldridge has been able to step right in? And the premise of the question was flawed, because if you look at the numbers, Blaze Aldridge is playing pretty well. If you look at how Blaze Aldridge has played, not super well. And even he said this week, I apologize, I need to be better. So when Drinkwitz was asked that question, I'm going to try to pause for about the same amount of time as Drinkwitz paused before he answered the question. I estimated it at 6 seconds. That's a long pause before he answered the question. And then what he said in response was, he's been productive, which means the numbers are there. If all you look at are tackles and sacks, he's playing really well. That's not all there is to it, guys. Chris Rodriguez was averaging 3.2 yards a carry before he was even touched in the Kentucky game. Multiple people on our site and on this chat have mentioned watching these games and seeing Aldridge and Devin Nicholson just out of alignment, overrunning plays, not in the right gap. So defensive line, problem. Linebacker, problem. No question. Again, we're not going to see things that tell me those are fixed today against SEMO. We can see things that tell me they're more broken than even I think they are. Again, if SEMO runs for 180, 200 yards, and if Nicholson and Aldridge are out there looking like they don't know where to go, then, yeah, even a bigger problem than we think. No question. Adam Schlittler is asking me to name one player in the history of the SEMO program. They had a they had a wide receiver a couple years ago that when they played here that was viewed as an NFL prospect, McKittrick? Something like that. But no, I really kind of can't. Eli Drinkwitz did mention that they have a middle linebacker who was named Jacob Morrissey, who he said was pretty good. So I'm going to go with Jacob Morrissey as the SEMO player I've heard of before. That is the extent of my knowledge about him. I know nothing about him. I don't know who the head coach at SEMO is. Some will see that as, hey, man, do your job. It's not that hard. I'm just going to tell you it doesn't matter. If Missouri loses this game, I'm still not going to know who SEMO's head coach is. And all we're going to be talking about is the disaster that Missouri was. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time working just to work and doing a whole bunch of research on SEMO. Good for them. I hope they're a good team. I hope they have a good season. But, not a major concern, I think, of Missouri fans. Bryce says, do you play the starting defense longer and hope more experience with the new scheme helps, or play the second team longer and hope you see something you've missed? It's a fair question. I think you go into this game with a plan, and I don't think it's based on offense or defense. I think it's based more on the individual player. Tyler Beatty needs fewer snaps in this game than, pick another starter with some less experience than, say, Xavier Delgado. Because Tyler Beatty, you know what he can do. So you get him his 6 carries or whatever and get him out. Just sit him on the sideline for 2.5, 3 quarters. On defense, it is a pretty inexperienced group. But Martez Manuel, I don't see a need to put him out there for 3 quarters in this game necessarily. Kobe Whiteside, does he need to play 3 full quarters? No, I'd rather get a look at Mekhi Wingo. Get more of a look at Darius Robinson in semi-meaningful situations. Throw Johnny and Arden Walker out there at defensive end and see if maybe there is something there, because Bryce brings up a good point about seeing something you've missed in practice. And Eli Drinkwitz said it this week, and this is what we've said this a lot over the years. You try to explain these decisions on who plays aren't just made on game day. They are largely made Tuesday through Thursday on who is practicing well and who the coaches look and say he's in the right place and he's making plays and I trust him to be out there. You earn game time, playing time in practice. And so that doesn't make the games meaningless. You now and then will have a Henry Josie who just, in practice, he looks good. In games, he looks great. And all of a sudden you say, hey, maybe I need to put a little more weight on what I see on Saturday and a little less weight on what I see on Wednesday. So, yeah, maybe there are some guys, whether it's a backup corner or whether it's a backup linebacker or defensive lineman that you put out there and all of a sudden they kind of pop and you say, hey, maybe this is a guy we need to be watching a little more closely than we have been watching him. So I like that idea. I mean, obviously, key number one is to win the game. And I think most coaches will go into this game and say the ideal scenario is to get my main guys out one series into the second half. In other words, almost nobody's going into a game and saying, I'm only trying to play this guy a quarter. Because the other thing you got to realize is these kids have earned the right to start. They're only guaranteed 12 games in a year. To take away one of them and say you're only playing the first quarter, I mean, this isn't a preseason game. They don't have those. So I think those kids have earned the right to start and to play a half, and then you like to generally give them one series each with the starting offense and defense in the third quarter just to kind of see how they come out of the locker room. See, hey, if you go in and you're up 35-7, can you come out and give me that same intensity and get a stop and a score to start the third quarter? And if that happens, then you pull them all, or you pull the vast majority of them, and you send some of the younger guys out there. Another thing you'd like to do is get some of those backups experience with better players around him, right? Maybe Dominic Lovett gets more snaps with Connor Bazelak at quarterback than he's gotten in the past few weeks. Maybe, J.J. Hester gets some snaps with Bazelak at quarterback. Maybe you're not waiting to put J.J. Hester out there with a backup quarterback and a backup offensive line. And maybe you're not waiting to put Brady Cook out there with a backup offensive line, right? Let's say you pull Bazelak at halftime and Brady Cook's going to get the third quarter. Well, maybe you let that starting offensive line play a couple series in the third quarter so you can see what Brady Cook looks like behind them rather than saying, hey, go out there with our number 2 offensive line and with our 5th, 6th, and 7th receivers and try to impress us, because that's not necessarily fair to Brady Cook. So there are a million different ways to handle it, and I'm not sure any of them really are wrong. But those are the questions that Eli Drinkwitz obviously is going to have to answer as we go along. I Am Case says the only argument is keeping these programs going by paying them as far as the FCS games. And you're right, that's why they exist, right? SEMO, I don't know what the payout for this game is, and frankly, I don't really care. But SEMO has a program SEMO has this game so that the program can continue to exist. And it's offering kids an opportunity to play and a college education, and those are good things. Don't get me wrong. They just aren't compelling. I mean, the crowd's not going to be good. Guys, 11 a.m. kick against an FCS team, won't surprise. It's a beautiful day outside, but it won't surprise me if Missouri doesn't get 40,000 fans for this game. I mean, if I'm being honest, why are you going to this game? Why are you driving 2 hours to go to this game? And some people will say, because, hey, I only get 7 of them, and this is what I do on Saturday, and that's great. It would be phenomenal for Missouri to have a big crowd for this game. I just don't really see it happening, to be quite honest. Brian says SEMO might surprise a few people. They might. If they do, I honestly don't think it's a very good thing, to be quite honest with you. But whatever. And Adam kind of agrees, says the backup quarterback snaps will be interesting. I think Cook will be the first guy off the bench. I think that Macon will probably play. If I had to expect, I'd do something like Cook in the third, Macon in the fourth. But if you're going to play those guys, you need to let them throw the ball. I mean, you just do. There's not much point to send them out there to hand off 27 times. I don't like that idea. It doesn't do any good. Brad Wood says, put me down for a Travion Ford sack. I mean, he was hurt the first week of the year. He missed all of spring football. I think Travion Ford's headed for a red shirt, and I'd be a little surprised if he played. Now, he may get a series or two toward the end just, because you still can play a kid and not burn the red shirt, but they've got other guys that are more likely to contribute in meaningful games this year, like Arden Walker and Johnny Walker, that I think will get a longer look at that position, to be quite honest. Heisman Highlights is asking where else to watch the game if you don't have ESPN Plus. Again, you should be able to see that. I don't think you need ESPN Plus. It's the SEC Network alternate channel. I think it will be listed on your guide. Again, I'm not 100% sure about that. It is Saturday morning. We're 35 minutes from kickoff. This game has been scheduled for SEC Network Plus for a while. So, I'm not positive. I'm not TV Guide. I watch it on the ESPN app. I don't think you need ESPN Plus. You can have the ESPN app without having ESPN Plus. But again, I could be wrong on that. So I'm not positive. Tyler says, wish almost no starters even played today. Now, I get that. But, again, they only get 12 of these. And to take it away from them, these guys have earned the right to be the starters and to play a half. And look, do you take the risk of maybe something freaky happens and a guy gets hurt? Yeah, you do. You take that risk every day in practice. You take that risk every single game you play. If it happens, it's a shame. I'm not going to blame Eli Drinkwitz if he has a very important player get hurt early in the second quarter. Now, if he has a very important player get hurt late in the third quarter in a 48-6 game, I'm blaming Eli Drinkwitz for that. But I don't think you'll see that as a scenario. Robert's asking if I'm surprised Barrett Bannister hasn't played more. A little bit. What struck me weird about the Kentucky game was that, unless I am wrong, Bannister and Dawson Downing didn't play at all in the Kentucky game until the very last series of that game. And then when Missouri had to move down the field and try to score the tying touchdown, then they came in the game. And that seemed a little bit weird to me, because if you're relying on them on the most important series of the game, and at that point the most important series of the season, why have they not been in earlier? If you think they're the right guys for that last drive, then how are they not the right guys for the first 11 drives? So that struck me as a little bit strange. Bannister's a really reliable guy. I know he was a little bit banged up last week, so I think that probably contributed in the Kentucky game to why he was limited to, I believe, just like 6 or 7 snaps, if I'm remembering the number correctly. But yeah, it's a little bit of a surprise. Andrew Monig hopes that Mookie Cooper gets some chances at explosive plays to get his confidence after so little experience. I think that's definitely something you'd like to see, is Mookie Cooper get loose. And really, we haven't seen him in the open field yet, right? We know he's fast, but we haven't seen him in the open field. And certainly against an FCS team, the speed advantage should be bigger than it was even against, Central Michigan or something like that. So you would like to see him put in a position where he can go make some plays. All right. T-Rise is letting people know that want to watch Hulu, YouTube TV do not carry SEC Plus. So there you go. That is information for you guys, and also says it's a good game to get Mookie some snaps if his foot's feeling good. Yeah, he had, I think he had like 15 snaps in the opener, and then about 20, I think, against Kentucky. I think he's played about 35 snaps, and he's actually touched the ball on like 12 of those. So, usually when he's on the field, he's getting the football. That's something to watch. You'd like to see him out there in some more situations where they've got plays called for other guys. Now the question is, can he block at his size? Are they giving him the ball every time he's on the field, or most times he's on the field, because he's not really an effective blocker either in the run game or the screen game or for another guy? I don't know that. I'm just throwing it out there as possible speculation, because he is not a big dude. So but Mookie Cooper is a guy you would like to see get loose. I think you'd like to see Dominic Lovett, Elijah Young, some of the guys that haven't really gotten the chance and been doing it. Now, Young had a touchdown against Central Michigan, but some of the guys who we haven't seen as much, obviously, is what you would like to see in this game. Dr. Sanitary brings up a good point. Maybe Dawson Downing was in that game because they liked him in pass protection. And what we are actually going to do now, we are going to go to the phone line. We're going to go over to Faurot Field and Mitchell Forty joins us from the press box, I believe. What's up, Mitch? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I hope everyone can hear me. That's always my first question when I'm on this thing.
I mean, I can hear you. I assume they'll let me know if they can't hear you.
Yeah.
So first things first. I know there was a post on our board that it looked like Ennis Rakestraw wasn't maybe going to play today. Have you had any chance to kind of look over who's out on the field and such?
Yeah, I think I've marked off just about everyone. Ennis Rakestraw and Case Cook are both not in uniform, so I would not expect either of them to play. It's possible I missed someone else, but as far as I can tell, they're the only two absences we didn't know was coming, like Jay Mackler and Cannon York.
Yeah, and I know Case Cook was on that injury list. And so is it possible that they could just play like in their shorts and a polo? Do they have to be in uniform to play?
I don't know. I don't know the rules. I think that's probably not allowed, but I don't know. I mean, get an FCS team in town, they might get a little loose with the rules.
I'd
no one really cares.
I'd like somebody to just take white tape and put like a 5'9" on the back of Case Cook's polo and let him go out there and play left guard. That's just me.
He's wearing like a hoodie with his number on it, so he would have a number.
He already has a number. Perfectly legal. I feel like you have to have a helmet, though. They take you out of the game. You have to have helmet and pads and such, so probably not. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. In all seriousness, look, there's just not that much to delve into in this game. I mean, I said by 12:30, most Missouri fans are going to be upset if this game's not over. You think is that a fair time frame, or is that too late?
Oh no! If anything, that's fine. I was going to say if anything too early. No, that's right. I think if anything, it could be done earlier. I would be stunned if this game's not over by midway through the second quarter. I mean, like SEMO's not even been good by FCS standards. They're 0-2 in FCS games. They've given up an average of, I think, 49.5 points a game. I would expect that Missouri will score on, I don't know, however many of its first whatever drives. If it wants to score on its first 5, it will. It will. Its first 6, it will. Its first 7, it will. Whatever, and then it'll probably take the starters out.
Yeah, I mean, I said usually in these situations, I think you want to play the starters one series into the third quarter. I think Connor Bazelak and Tyler Beatty could be exceptions to that. Maybe Mike Mayetti too. I think you could maybe take those guys out a little earlier, but also then I think you've got some guys that, man, maybe you want to leave them out there a little longer, right? And also situations like, say, a J.J. Hester and Elijah Young, you want them out there with the first-team offensive line and the first-team quarterback just to get a look at them, because if you're throwing those guys out there, or if you're throwing Brady Cook out there behind a second-string offensive line, you may not really get a true idea of what they can do.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's certain guys like Tyler Beatty, you know what he can do, and he's gotten plenty of carries and plenty of work and plenty of hits on him in the first 2 weeks, and you have other running backs who are capable of running with the first team. Like, there's no reason to play him too much. Connor Bates, like, I agree, maybe you do give the backup quarterback a little time with the first team just to give him that experience in case you have to later. And, same with the guys in the receiving room or on the offensive line who are, kind of on the periphery of first team. If you could rotate them in kind of one at a time, so it's not just full second string, but, maybe give, like, I don't know, E.J. Dilma Ogar or Zeke Powell or whatever, a couple snaps with the rest of the first team. Same at wide receiver with, like you mentioned, J.J. Hester. I could see stuff like that.
So defensively, somebody had asked earlier, and there's a lot of ways to handle this too, but defensively, do you go with the starters longer? Because obviously there has been some problems adjusting to a new scheme. And, hey, not that shutting down SEMO will make everything fixed, but just get them maybe instead of 2 quarters, maybe those guys are mostly out there for 3 just to get them some confidence and get them some reps?
Yeah, I could see that, especially, in positions where you rotate a lot, like defensive line and corner. The guys who play every snap, like Martez Manuel and even the linebackers, even though they're struggling, I could see maybe getting them out a little earlier, because it's like we said with Tyler Beatty, you more or less know what you have with them. And especially, like, I know the linebackers haven't been great, but you kind of also want to see what you have from some other guys there. Right. I think what even said this week, we'd like to be playing more linebackers. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see them go down the depth chart a little bit sooner at those spots. But, like, defensive line where you've got, like, guys like, Makai Wingo or Realus George or whatever, who played a little bit with the first team, maybe they stay in the game a little bit longer.
Yeah, and linebacker especially, I mean, look, we're going to see Chad Bailey. I assume we're going to see Jamie Petway, but I'm curious if we see Damian Wilson and Zach Lovett and Will Norris, and just almost a situation where, hey, they haven't looked like it in practice, but let's throw them out there, and I don't know, maybe we see something we haven't seen.
Yeah, I mean, Damian Wilson traveled last week, so that would suggest to me that, the coaches would be comfortable throwing him in at the end of a game like this. We'll see how far down the depth chart they go, if they get all the way to him and Zach Lovett. But, yeah, I would like to see that. I mean, I think, I know this goes against what Eli Drinkwitz said in his press conference, but, frankly, that was just more posturing and sending a message to his players than anything else with him saying, is that they think we're going to just play people because it's SEMO, they're insane. I think you want to, put guys out there in a game situation and see what you got in a situation like this when you can.
Right, and if you can't, again, if you get in a situation where, Missouri State is matching you touchdown for touchdown, all that tells you is, dude, we're in trouble in future weeks. Like, yeah, do what you got to do to win this game, but if Connor Bazelak's playing in the fourth quarter, something went badly wrong.
Yeah, that goes back to what you've said about these types of games for a long time. The only thing you can learn is bad. I mean, like if Mizzou comes out and wins 50-0, which was the exact score the last time these two teams met, and holds SEMO to 55 total yards, like that's not going to tell me anything fixed. But if the opposite happens, where it's a game in the fourth quarter, then something is very badly wrong.
So give me a thing on each side of the ball where you come out of this game and going, oh, I feel worse about next weekend than I felt about this one. Or, than you felt coming in,
Yeah, I mean, I would still stick with the lines of scrimmage because I think that's still the biggest question mark for this team, and it's really probably where an SEC team should have the biggest edge over an FCS team is, just having bigger bodies along the line of scrimmage. I mean, I don't think a Missouri quarterback should be touched, or at least not when you have the first string and guys who could be close to the first string offensive line in the game. I mean, the last thing you want is Connor Bazelak taking an unnecessary hit in this game. So we, definitely want to see good protection from them. On the defensive side, I mean, it's stopping the run. Like, I'm not going to say anything's fixed if they're able to stop the run against SEMO, but if they're not, then you're definitely, you're in trouble, and your confidence in that unit's probably even further dropping going into the BC game.
Yeah, so just we'll finish up with two numbers. Give me a number where rushing yardage, you go, oh, man, this is bad. Like, SEMO can run for how many yards before you start saying, oh, this is worse than we thought?
Yeah, I mean, I'd want to couch the answer by saying, like, it depends how the number comes, right?
Right, maybe there's a 70-yard run.
Mizzou puts in its third string and they break off a 70-yard run late in the game. I don't care about that. But, I mean, you would definitely, I think, want to hold them under 100 yards on the ground. I mean, like, they've been averaging like 122 against FCS competition. So I would be a little alarmed if they get over 100 yards, unless, like I said, big long run late in the game when it's over, whatever.
Right. Same caveat with points, like understanding, hey, maybe there's a garbage touchdown with the walk-ons in the game or something, but how many points is too many in this game for SEMO?
I mean, I don't know. I would say single digits, but also at the same time, it just depends how long Mizzou keeps its foot on the gas. But I mean, if they want to, they can absolutely hold SEMO out of the end zone. I would think. At least I would hope. So I'll say, if they get to double digits, that's not a red flag by any means. But I think they're very capable of not letting that happen. Yeah,
I think I'd pick 52-17 and allowing for something like, hey, maybe a pass could get deflected and they could return it for a fluke touchdown. But still, if they top 17, even if it includes that, you're going, I don't think that's great. So what did you pick final-wise?
I had 49-3 Missouri.
Okay.
I mean, it just I said, it just depends how long you keep the foot on the gas. But in looking over the numbers a little bit, even just during the preview, SEMO is a bad FCS team.
Yes.
This game, I could easily see it being 59-0.
Last thing, I mean, I said, look, if I had tickets to this game, I'm not sure I'd go. I'm not going to blame anybody for what the crowd is today. But 11 a.m. against kind of a bad FCS team, I'm not sure it's out of the question that they don't have 40,000 there.
Yeah, I will say, it's, I guess, family weekend on campus, so that draws some people in. And I was there were a decent number of people out tailgating at about 9:30 when I was walking into the stadium. So, it's a nice day. I think people show up. I also think that no matter what, they will never announce an attendance less than 40,000.
Right.
They will find a way to make that number higher if they want. My guess would be, somewhere similar to the first game, maybe a little less, somewhere in the 45,000 range.
Yep. All right. Well, Mitch, thanks, man. Everybody can follow you all day on the site, and we'll catch up with you after.
Yep. Sounds good. Enjoy the game, everyone.
All right, Mitchell Forty from Faroe Field there. He and Joel Lorenzi are going to have your coverage all day long on PowerMizzou.com. They'll have updates on the message boards. They will have all the written coverage afterwards, and I'll be back on the post game. And I'm not leaving yet, so don't go away. It's only 10:40. We got a few more minutes here. But I'll have the post game show basically. When the game ends, I got to update a couple things as far as numbers and graphics and things like that. But hopefully within 10 minutes of the end of the game, we will be live with the Boulevard post-game drink and take your calls and talk about what happened. Do want to remind you that this show is brought to you by the Colin Gentry Law Group. Right up there on the top left of your screen, you can see their graphic. They are located in Jefferson City, Missouri. Chip, Jason, Nick, and Emily do a great job down there. You can get in touch with them at 573-691-4531. You can go to callgentry.com and schedule an online or schedule a consultation with them. They will take care of basically any legal needs you have. Whatever the category, I guess. They'll do personal injury, wrongful death, professional licensing, family law, criminal law, business law, government relations and contracts, labor law, appellate work. They can do pretty much everything for you guys. They got medical malpractice, workers' comp. So if you've got a legal need, again, kind of as we do with all of our partners and sponsors, we're not telling you have to go with them. Just give them the first shot. If you find yourself in a situation where you need some legal help, just give the team down at Colin Gentry the first chance. Again, callgentry.com for more information. Want to look around the SEC here for a couple minutes, and then we will get back to some of your guys' questions and comments to kind of round things out. The other 11 a.m. games are equally as bad. New Mexico at Texas A&M. A&M has a backup quarterback playing, so there's and probably will for quite a while. Zach Calzada, I believe, is the kid's name. The starter, Haynes King, went out last week against Colorado. A&M did not look good against Colorado. You would expect them to look good against New Mexico. Calzada probably still going to be the quarterback when A&M comes to Missouri in Week 7. But Haynes King could be back by then. But I guess at least worth watching what Calzada looks like in his first start. Kentucky hosts Chattanooga. That should certainly be a blowout. Not much to see there. Tennessee hosts Tennessee Tech. Look, Josh Heupel puts 80 on teams like this, so that won't be a surprise. The good one of the day, Alabama in the Swamp at Florida, 2:30 on CBS. That one will be going on during our postgame show, so I'm sure we'll have some discussion of the Tide and the Gators on the postgame show. I expect Alabama to kind of roll, to be quite honest. Georgia Southern's at Arkansas. Mississippi State at Memphis could be a good game at 3. I mean, I don't particularly like watching Mississippi State play, but that could be at least interesting. South Carolina's at Georgia tonight on ESPN. Georgia, 31-point favorite, which seems a little bit crazy to me. Auburn at Penn State, that's the best game of the day, I actually think. I think that's a better game than Alabama and Florida. Auburn has scored 62 weeks in a row, but we're going to find out about Auburn today. I'm not sure what to make of them, and I think Penn State's got a pretty good defense and a pretty good team, Happy Valley, whiteout, all that. So Auburn can go in and win that game, then I'm going to have to think a little harder about what Brian Harsin can do this year. Central Michigan, who obviously Missouri beat in Week 1's at LSU at 6:30 tonight. I don't think Central Michigan wins that game, but I'm not sure it's impossible. Tulane's at Ole Miss in a game that should be pretty entertaining. Tulane put up, I think, 35 in Norman against Oklahoma in Week 1. Ole Miss, has looked really good in the first 2 weeks. This would be a significant win. I mean, at least as significant as like a group of 5 win can be, I think, at home. And then the last game, Stanford at Vandy on ESPNU. Stanford looked awful Week 1 against Kansas State, looked great Week 2 against Southern Cal and got Clay Helton fired. Vandy looked awful Week 1 and a little bit less awful Week 2, but still not very good. So that's your SEC slate. There's some decent games in there. One really good one in Alabama, Florida that I think could be good, but also could be, hey, just your, kind of Alabama put the foot on the throat early and it ends up like 31-10 and it's never all that interesting. So Justin Ferguson back. Jagerbomb forecast heavy today. Just got back from deployment and haven't drank in 6 months. First of all, Justin, thank you for your service, man. Everybody appreciates that, I know. And second of all, I hope you see the end of the game, because that seems, not drinking for 6 months and a Jagerbomb on every Missouri score seems dangerous to me. But hey, good luck, man. Do your best. Drew's asking, are SEMO players typically equivalent to Mizzou walk-ons? Some of them certainly. A lot of the FCS scholarship players are guys who could have been like preferred walk-ons at the FBS level, but aren't. And I heard a coach earlier this week say, and I can't remember who it was, but he said, it was Dave Steckel on Dave Matters podcast, and Steck is doing the color commentary on this game on SEC Plus. But Steck said that when he was at Missouri State, he told his players in games like this, always remember that they didn't want you. And he said, don't tell me they did want you, because if they did want you, you'd be there. And so that's the thing. Like, there aren't very many FCS players, unless they have transferred down, who had FBS scholarship offers. Because if they did, they would have taken them. Even if it's like a lower level FBS school, you're taking that offer over the FCS scholarship. So most of them are a lot of them are guys who would have been like maybe a preferred walk-on in the SEC, but or at Missouri, but not a scholarship guy. And then obviously as you get down the depth chart, those guys are probably more like just regular walk-ons, or maybe just honestly not quite good enough to play at this level. So it varies, obviously. And you'll see some stars and some guys that, obviously could have played here. I mean, you might get a Kiki Chisholm who develops by year 3 into a guy that, FBS schools missed on him. But, overall, I'd say it's kind of like a preferred walk-on level. Let's see. Andrew Manning completely agrees Beatty needs only one series. I'd probably give him the first quarter, but that'd be it. Guesses on total yardage from Michael Cox. I'll be honest. I think he'll see the field, but I'm interested to see what that third running back rotation looks like, whether it's Cox, whether it's Downing, whether it's B.J. Harris, if I'm the staff, I give them all 4 or 5 carries at least to kind of get a look at them and see which one I think it should be. Anything more than a garbage touchdown is too much. I mean, look, weird things happen, right? If Missouri turns the ball over and SEMO starts a drive at the 9 or something, but again, I think 17 is the point where you go anything more than that, and there's major concern about this defense. Let's see. Initial attendance should be decent. Will mostly be empty after half. I think that's right. Guys will walk out and have their tailgates and all that, and obviously they can't come back in. Auburn Penn State should be pretty good. Agree with that. LSU looked bad against UCLA. I agree with that too. I don't know if they'll lose at home to Central Michigan bad, but look, this is not the LSU that we have gotten used to. So again, we are probably a little more than 11 minutes from kickoff, but it's 10:49. I mean, we're getting there. Kick time coming up in the next 15 to 20 minutes. It's on SEC Plus. Mitchell and Joel will have your coverage all day long on the site. Join the game thread over there, all that. I'm going to go downstairs and watch the game here at my house, and then within about 10 minutes at the end of the game, so I'm shooting for in that 2:30 to 3 o'clock range. We'll be back here with the Boulevard post-game drink. We're going to open up the phone lines. We're going to take your calls, and appreciate you guys. The participation was solid, for being, again, an FCS game at 11 a.m. Appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day and making this part of it. Make sure before you leave that you hit the like button here on the show. Hit the subscribe button to the channel. What that's going to do is that's going to allow you to get alerts when we do go live. So you're not just sitting around waiting at the end of the game for when the post-game show starts. If you subscribe to the channel, as soon as I hit that go live button, you're going to get a push alert on your phone that says, hey, PowerMizzou.com broadcasting live. You'll be able to join the post-game show there. And appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate Call and Gentry Law Group for sponsoring it. Once again, callgentry.com. Check it out. We read off all the different categories. If you've got a legal issue, they can help you with it. So give those guys the first shot at your business. They are our presenting sponsor on the pregame call all season long. Next week's another early game. So this show will start at 9:30 next week in advance of Mizzou and BC. Certainly would be expecting Mizzou to be 2-1 at that point. BC, I believe, has an 11 a.m. game this week as well. I'm actually going to look that up real quick before we go, so that if you guys want to flip channels, either if Missouri gets boring or if Missouri goes to commercial, Boston College is at Temple at 11 a.m. on ESPNU at Lincoln Financial Field in Philly. So they've got a tougher test than Missouri has, but not a hugely tough test. Temple was blown out by Rutgers earlier this week, but you'll get your first look at the backup quarterback because BC is going to be going with the backup certainly next week and most likely all season long. So check out the Eagles on ESPNU during commercials of Mizzou and SEMO. And again, we'll meet you back here between I'm guessing 2:30 to 3 o'clock this afternoon on the post-game drink. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in a few hours.